As far as Rick and Morty Season 8 episodes go, the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly is the most distinctive. The post-credits scene skillfully paid off a great joke with the Rick clones. The conclusion of The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly followed up on a seemingly pointless joke, providing a humorous conclusion to the story, much like the post-credits sequence in Rick and Morty's Season 8, Episode 2. The Rick clones were portrayed as the primary antagonists, and while the main heroes were hardly mentioned in the episode, there were many different iterations of them engaged in the tumultuous plot. Episode 3 of Rick and Morty Season 8 examined what happened to the Citadel and all the clones that returned there after the trailer hinted at its return. A major conflict was created when the Rick clones tried to restore the Citadel by capturing the Morty clones and making them work, while the Mortys had quiet village full of refugees. Luckily, Homesteader Rick repelled the Rick clones and aided in the liberation of the captive Mortys. Nevertheless, his presence in enemy land introduced an apparently inconsequential joke that was surprisingly developed in the amusing post-credits sequence. The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly post-credits scene ends with the boxing dice continuing there. 3 Ricks are seen playing dice just before Homesteader Rick begins his firefight with the Rick clones. The rules are unknown, but when the 2 dice are rolled, they grow limbs and legs and then start fighting. The copied Rick yells angrily, "Damn it, that's not a 6!" and throws a bottle, which Homesteader Rick catches before shooting the clone after one die knocks out the other. The post-credits scene gave a twist to what seemed to be the end of the joke, a seemingly foolish game that wonderfully encapsulated the peculiarity of the show. In an apparently benign conclusion, the 2 dice emerge from the debris together, gazing out into the sunset after the Ricks have been eliminated and their community has been destroyed. But as the episode ends, they continue to battle, slowly turning to face one another before one of them punches the other. The episode ended in a humorous yet surprising way, and the franchise's continued use of humor is precisely what has contributed to Rick and Morty Season 8's positive reviews. Although it would have been a more satisfying conclusion to watch the 2 dice flee the Citadel's ruins and set aside their disagreements, their choice to resume their rivalry actually fit in really well with the actual conclusion of The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly. Rick and Morty's post-credits scene mimics the episode's real ending. Despite the scenes being so dissimilar, the post-credits scene appropriately corresponds with the actual ending of Rick and Morty Season 8, Episode 3. Similar to Rick and Morty's appearance as the credits rolled, the 2 dice helping each other out of the wreckage suggested a happy, heartfelt finish, but their choice to keep punching each other instead produced a more sorrowful conclusion. The liberated Morty clones each go to a place where they are appreciated and feel at home after Homesteader Rick gives his life to kill the Rick clones. Arcade Morty, however, decides to go back to the original setting of the episode. Here, he creates graves for Doc Morty and Homesteader Rick in remembrance of their contribution to the liberation of the other Morty clones. The protagonists interrupted the scene, which was both emotional and rewarding, just before its conclusion. Before he and Rick accuse Arcade Morty of killing Homesteader Rick and setting his house on fire, the show's protagonist, Morty, shows up in search of his fidget spinner. Morty recovers his toy and departs with Rick, full of optimism, before Arcade Morty can explain what actually transpired. Morty is totally unaware of anything that transpired during their absence. The post-credits scene and the actual finale both appear to be coming to a close on a more positive note, but they are both purposefully spoiled by a sudden change in tempo. Both endings to The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly seem like fitting ways to wrap up Season 8's most intriguing episode yet. And either scenario perfectly captures Rick and Morty's pessimistic character.